Hey there, this is Karen Valencic. Gosh, this is my very first live stream. And I am supposed to be on LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitter. So I encourage you to ask me questions if you'd like, although if I don't answer them, it may be because I don't see them anywhere. So Karen Valencic, I am the creator of the Spiral Impact Method for Mastering Conflict. And I have posed a question out there that I want to talk about today, which is how, how can you honor yourself and others during this holiday season? And I always like to pose things as a question for a very good reason, because as I ask you that question, I'm hoping that it causes your mind to kind of click in and start thinking about, yeah, how would I do that? How would I honor myself and others this holiday season? And I'm going to share 5 tips with you that come from my work. But I always like to get people thinking about what is true for them around that question. And before I get into those 5 tips, I want to share with you a couple things. One is that question, that statement, actually, honor myself and others, is part of my method. In my method of Spiral Impact, I talk about actually having a statement that is your intention. That's a deeper personal intention. And this is mine, which is, am I honoring myself and others? And that's something that I always do to try to monitor my behavior, my interactions, and how I go about things in my life. And the reason I say honor myself and others, both of those, is because, the first part of my life, I clearly spent a lot of time trying to honor and accommodate other people. And when that's off balance, that is just not a great thing. So I always want to check in to see, am I honoring myself and others at the same time? And it's possible, actually, to do that. And then a couple other things that people might say about that whole premise, honoring myself and others, is what if you don't honor other people? And in a time where we are actually at a lot of division in our world, there might be people that you really don't respect and honor. And the thing you got to ask yourself is, you don't have to have those people right next to you. But the fact is we can learn so much from the people that we disagree with if we are willing to do what it takes to really hear them and understand them. And there's an old saying, keep your enemies, or keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. And there's a lot of truth to that. And so that's why honoring the other is actually a way to bring people together. And so you may not be thinking about things the best way that there is. You might have something to learn. I know I certainly continue to learn from other people. So that's why it's honor myself and others. And I've probably said that way too many times already in this broadcast. So I'm going to just take a little sip of my tea. And there's just one other thing about that I want to say is about other people. Other people are such a gift. I'm a martial artist, and I've been practicing, for 30 years now, and I love my practice. And the thing about martial arts, or actually anything, it's the person that's probably your strongest opponent is actually your biggest teacher. And so I look at those people that I might heavily disagree with, and I think, they're my teacher. They teach me to how to be present with myself. They help me sharpen my skills. And then one more little story that I think a lot of people don't know the origins of this, but there's an old saying, don't let them get your goat. And it's always curious as to where things start from. Where did that saying come from? And again, that gets to be your other, your opponent, that person that can get your goat. And where that saying comes from is actually racehorses. Did you know that they will put a goat in the paddock or in the stall with a racehorse, and the goat calms the horse down? And so when somebody gets your goat, that means that they've taken your goat, the thing that keeps you calm, away. So remember that. What is your goat? So okay, so now to my five tips. Okay, so number one, decide for this holiday season, and I'm recording this or I'm streaming this on the solstice, which is one of my favorite days. And of course, we're past other holidays, but we're in the midst of December. And so think about, and we're approaching the new year. So think about, what is it that is important to you? What is important to you about this season? And it gets back to, again, that wonderful word of intention, because if you have a clear intention, then you can visit that each day and make sure that you're aligned with it. And the thing about what matters most to you, what's important to you for this holiday season for yourself, is that it gives you something to move toward. So, for example, don't make that about something that depends on somebody else doing something or saying something or behaving in some way. Make it something that is independent of other people, because you're likely to be disappointed if you're relying on other people. So, for example, perhaps I want to stay in the spirit of gratitude for my holiday. And or maybe I want to stay in the spirit of joy. I want to feel the light and the blessings of the holiday. Perhaps I want to spend this holiday outside as much as I can, in the outdoors, and feeling that freedom of being in in the wind and the sun, if that's possible wherever you are. So perhaps that's what matters most to you. Perhaps maybe having really great food matters most to you. But think about, what is it that matters most to you? And that way, if you end up stuck in traffic, if you end up, things don't always work out exactly like you'd like them to. And certainly in these times of COVID, things are always constantly changing. So think of what does matter to you the most. And for me, this holiday season, it's really going to be staying in the mode of gratitude and joy. And those are things that I have control over. So I can that's me. I'm the only person I can control. So that's tip number one. Decide what is the most important thing for you this holiday season. So you know, number two is to just know, and I'm giving you permission. It's okay to say no, thank you, without having to explain yourself. You know, we can have a lot of demands put on us, a lot of invitations, a lot of offerings, and it's okay to say no, thank you. And you don't have to get into some big explanation around why you're saying no, because oftentimes that will dig you into a deeper hole. So you can just say no, thank you. So whether it's another event that somebody would like you to go to, or another piece of dessert, another drink, whatever it is, you can just say no, thank you. And those are three really powerful words. And again, you don't have to explain yourself. And if you feel like you need to explain yourself a little bit, you could say, it's just not a fit for me right now. Or, I'm just not comfortable with that. So if you're going to try to explain it, just make it really, really simple. So I'm so curious if anybody's listening to me. And I don't see any questions or anything. But okay. So number three, and this is one I have to say that I can be really guilty of not doing myself, which is carve out time for yourself to do those things that you know support you. So if you're a meditator, a breather, you know, you're an exercise person, do those things. Make sure to put those as a priority in your day. And I know particularly if I've got a house full of people, I can find it really easy to stop doing those things that I know really make me feel good and solid. And so make sure to keep those in your day. And actually my daughter, both my daughters were home during Thanksgiving, and I just loved it because my one daughter does this yoga practice with a woman in Apple TV. And we all did it together, and it was really delightful to be able to share that, to share that thing with her. And I actually all feel really calm and stretched and ready for the day afterward. So be sure to carve out time to do those things that are helpful for you. And by the way, a big part of what I teach is around the concept of being centered. And if you visit my website, which is karenvalencic.com or spiralimpact.com, takes you to the same place. In the resource page, or should be a pop-up that comes up, you can get a free download of what I call Strengthen Your Balance and Focus practice for while you're driving. And it'll go through some things. And when you think about going into the new year, that's always a great practice to adopt and to expand, that really gives you a solid base to move from. Okay, so we've talked about 1, 2, and 3. I'll repeat all these at the end in case you're tuning in later. So number 4, and this is something that I love, and I think it's probably the hardest one on this list. Hear other people's opinions without arguing or necessarily agreeing with them. And when I say hear other opinions, particularly those that you don't think you agree with, but hear their opinions without arguing or agreeing. And, that is something that is such a gift. And if you've studied with me at all, conflict is this. And we get into this thing, and what happens is if we have a difference of opinion, nobody listens to anybody. And the fact is I think oftentimes we have more in common than we have that separates. So give yourself permission to hear other opinions without having to argue or agree. Now, you might be saying, well, wait a minute here. They need to hear my side. Or if I don't say anything, they'll think I agree with them. And so what I do in those cases is I'll say two things I really love to say is, one is to keep the conversation and really make sure that I understand totally what they're talking about. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about it so that I can really listen and understand totally and make sure I'm not making assumptions and I can really understand exactly what they mean. And then the other thing that I say is, I see it differently. I hear you, but I see it differently. And I don't say it with an edge or a push on it. I just say, I see it differently. Now, at that point, something happens. Either the conversation's probably over, or they might say, well, how do you see it? Now, if they say that, then there's an opening for you to share how you see it. And it can be a really beautiful thing when you do that. But if you really want to create allies and you really want to have an effect of people in the world, don't get into arguing your point because it won't be heard. And the best way to really be heard is to be invited into that opinion. So, there's a lot to this. And I'm giving you 5 tips to honor yourself and others. And truly, I could write a book. And as a matter of fact, I have written a book. It's right over my shoulder. And this is a fabulous, fascinating study of communication and conflict. So okay. So number 5, I think it's really an important thing. And that is reach out to other people that might be going through a really hard time of grief, or or they're alone. Reach out and just say, "Hey, I'm thinking of you. Want to check in?" That can be as simple as a text message, a voicemail. It could be, dropping off something at a person or something. But there's a lot of people that are alone, and particularly as things continue to change in our world, you never know where people are. So check in on people. And it's funny because I live by myself and work by myself a lot, and I find I really appreciate it when people check in with me. And I may seem like, a pretty confident person that's got things together, but I have times where, boy, I really appreciate it when people reach out to me and just check in to see how I am. So who do you know that may be experiencing some grief? If you know someone that's lost somebody this year, a lot of times we feel really uncomfortable when somebody dies, and and sometimes what I think happens is a lot of times instead of fearing that we might say the wrong thing, we say nothing. And that is pretty painful for people that have gone through a major loss. And you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a big thing. You just say, "Hey, I know this has got to be a tough season for you, and I'm just reaching out to say I care about you. And if there's anything that I can do for you, or if you'd like to catch a cup of coffee or a Zoom or a phone call, I'd love to do that." You don't have to be there with answers, and you don't have to take people's pain away, but just um, reach out to other people. It's that time of year, and it should always be that time of year. And on that same vein, I have really tried to stay quiet these past 2 years about the pandemic, and I have done a tremendous amount of work in the healthcare field, particularly in hospitals, and I just want to say, our healthcare workers are really going through a hard time. And so do what you can do to stay out of the hospital as a patient. Get vaccinated. And I'm not being political with that. I am looking at the numbers, and the numbers say there's no guarantee that you're not going to get sick or COVID. But the statistics are working in your favor if you are vaccinated fully with a booster. So consider doing that, not just for yourself, because I know I'm healthy. I mean, I have people say, "Oh, I'm not doing a vaccine because I'm a healthy person." Well, I haven't been sick in 20 years plus. I'm a very healthy person, but I was first in line to get a vaccine. And I'm not a big I'm not a big person that does that kind of stuff, but this is a different animal. So think about your healthcare workers in your hospitals. I know here in Indy, we've got the National Guard coming in to help. And thank God we've got them. So, but the best way we can help is to be able to stay out of the hospitals. So I'm going to just do a quick review if you came in late. So the topic was, how do you honor yourself and others in this holiday season? And the number one was, decide what's most important to you, making it not contingent on somebody else's behavior. Number two, it's okay to say no thank you. It's just okay to say no thank you without trying to explain everything. It's just not a fit. You're not comfortable. That's okay. Just say no thank you. Three, carve out time for yourself to do those things that help your wellness and your well-being. Number four, hear other people's differing opinions without arguing or necessarily agreeing. You can say, "Tell me more about that," to make sure you understand, and then say, "I see that differently," and see if that opens up a beautiful place for you to share, or if it doesn't, that's okay too. And then number five, reach out to others who might be lonely or struggling or with grief this holiday season. So this was my first live stream. I'm planning on doing these more often in the new year, and I haven't decided exactly when and where. or I know where, I'm just not sure when. But if you have a topic in the area of conflict, change, and innovation, please send me a note and I can address those things. So have a wonderful holiday. Enjoy the shortest day of the year and and get ready for I hope, a fabulous 2022. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.